Hey, welcome to Sipper Social Club. I'm Jeremy. Today, Whisky Advocate magazine has recently released an article with their 12 most flipped whiskeys. I want to go through that list, see how the prices compare, see how they rank them, compare that to my personal experience using the secondary market. So let's get at it. So for their article, Whisky Advocate has sourced 6 different secondary groups using Facebook and MeWe, and they've averaged out the various prices of what the bottles sold for. So coming in at their number 12 is HIBIKI 17-year-old. Absolutely no surprise here. Japanese whiskey, huge on the secondary market. I remember when HIBIKI announced that the 17-year-old would be discontinued, prices on the secondary just completely skyrocketed. You're looking at around $100 retail, I think is where these were at a long time ago. They immediately went up to about $750 US. Prices have since come down. Whisky Advocate saying these go for around $450 US. I say that's probably really accurate. I see them for around $400 to $500 on the secondary. Coming in at number 11, no surprise, William LARUE Weller. You can probably put the entire BTAC lineup somewhere in this list. They've chose Weller at 11. MSRP for 2019 release, $100 USD. Secondary market, they have it listed at $725. That's pretty accurate, I think, for a 2019 release. The further you go back, you can add, $25 to $50 each year you go back. Some rare ones, there was a 17-year-old Weller at one point in time. Those, well over $1,500, $2,000 for those. So yeah, definitely a very sought-after bourbon on the secondary market. Completely agree with this number. Coming in at their number 10 is the 15-year-old cask strength barrel bourbon. Now, I don't really agree with this being on their list. I never, ever see barrel bourbon on the secondary market. They have it listed at $250 MSRP and just $300 on the secondary. That's why you're not seeing a lot of barrel products on the secondary market. They already have a pretty large MSRP. There isn't much wiggle room there as far as demand's concerned to put those bourbons up on the secondary market. So I kind of disagree with this one. I'm not really sure how this made their list at just a $50 markup. Yeah, you won't see too many of barrel products on the secondary. Coming in at number 9 is WILLETT Bourbon. Definitely agree with WILLETT being on this list. Anything WILLETT definitely has a high secondary market value. They have a 6-year-old coming in at $250 US in the secondary. I think that's a little low for a 6-year-old bourbon. I've definitely seen 6-year-old WILLETTs go for much higher than that in the secondary market. In fact, I had a 6-year-old Willet that I traded for a George T. Stagg 2017. Those are valued around $400, $450. So I think they're a little low in their estimation with that one. I would definitely pay $250 USD for a 6-year-old Willet. So yeah, I think definitely Willet should be on the list. A little bit low in that estimation, I believe. All right, number 8, they got the Elmer T. Lee 100-year tribute bourbon. Of course, this one is just the regular release, but you do see this on the secondary quite often. Definitely don't disagree. Lots of Elmer T. Lee high-demand bourbon. Definitely see it all the time on the secondary market. $400 USD for the 100-year tribute. Yeah, I think that's probably about right. Maybe even a little bit low. I think when these things first hit the market, they were maybe like around 500, maybe even closer to 6. They've since come down a little bit after maybe some of the reviews came out that it's not quite something super, super amazing that you need to run out and pay that high of a premium for. Definitely agree that the Elmer T. Lee is on there. These even go for around 100, 150 US dollars just for the regular release. But I think definitely one to collect and not to open. Number 7, Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. Definitely agree with this one. Reviews of Old Forester Birthday Bourbon are kind of all over the place. Some years they're really good, some years just average. And I've definitely heard people say that they do not think that it's even worth the retail price around 100 US dollars. They have it listed for $350 US. I think that's about right for 2019 release. The older you go, you can add $25 to $50 for each year you go back to a point. So yeah, definitely agree that lots of people flip birthday bourbons. It's definitely a collectible one that lots of people want to get the entire lineup of. I just think that's more of a collector, not a sipper. That's why those things get pushed around quite a bit, just because people are not cracking them, because the quality's not there, in my opinion. Next on their list, MICHTER'S. Definitely agree. Lots of MICHTER'S bottles gets moved on the secondary market. Anything with an age statement, anything that's kind of rare in the releases, Definitely the 10-year-old, the 10-year-old rye. The 20-year-old bourbon commands a huge price. I think you're looking at $2,500 US for that bottle. The 10s move all the time. They got them listed at $200 US in the secondary. I believe that's pretty accurate. I would say 200 is pretty bang on to where these are going for now. MSRP, they say 130. I guess that's up because I remember buying one of these on the shelf for 105 US. So I guess prices have gone up a bit on these, but a great bourbon, so definitely agree with it being on this list. Coming in at number 5, it's the Baker's 13-year-old. This is another example of a bourbon that really spiked when it first came out on the secondary market and has since come back down to earth. As more people open these, the reviews come out. In my opinion, it's a great bourbon, but nowhere near the price that it commands, even at retail. So I think these things came out at around $300, $350 US when they first hit the market. Come back down. They have it listed here at $200 US in the secondary. I think that's probably about right. I'd say even maybe it's gone back down a little bit, even less than that now. Maybe like 175 for this bottle. Coming in at number 4, it's the Old Fitzgerald Bottle and Bond 15-year-old. Completely agree. Lots of these Old Fitzgerald decanter-style bottles get moved to the secondary market. Again, I think another one that maybe is purchased more for collectability versus drinkability. Reviews on some of these are, good but not great. $300 US on the secondary market. I think that's pretty accurate of where you're going to see these go for. About double retail price. Coming in at number 3 is a bourbon I'm always so shocked to see how much it commands on the secondary market. Just because we have so much access to it here in Ontario. We get it a couple times a year. It comes in large quantities. There's more than enough to go around. It doesn't immediately fly off the shelves. And we pay a little bit less than what Whisky Advocate is saying. MSRP is at $60 US. We pay about 65 Canadian. So after the conversion rate, it's a little bit less than that. They've got it listed at 120 plus US in the secondary market. I'm not sure I've seen it go for 120, but it might be getting up there now. Some of these mom and pop shops, smaller liquor stores in the States, will throw a $200 price tag on this, a $300 price tag. Just completely blows my mind considering how, in my opinion, this whiskey is average at best. But Buffalo Trace has done a great job marketing this one for sure. All right, coming in at number 2 on the Whisky Advocate Top 12 Flipped Whiskies is Weller 12-year-old. This one, obviously, the Weller 107. I think you can probably group the Weller core range into this category with the 107, the 12, the Craft Your Perfect Bourbon, and the Full Proof. Soon to be single barrel, which will, who knows how much that one will go for. Probably, I would say, 400 to 600 at the start, and then we'll see where the reviews are on that, and then the market will adjust accordingly, as it does with a lot of these bourbons. Really interesting to see the spike in these Wellers. I remember, even as recent as, 4 years ago, being able to buy these on the shelf here in Ontario, $35 Canadian a bourbon. Great price for what you're getting with these. Now, they've got the Weller 12 listed at 150 US in the secondary. I've definitely seen it go for that much. If you look at the older bottlings of these stubbier bottles, you're looking at, add an extra $100 on for something like that. Just insane how much these are going for. Is it good bourbon? Of course, yeah, it is good bourbon, but they used to charge, $25 for this bottle. And now, you can't find it. And if you do, you're one of the lucky few. These have been allocated into the lottery system here. People obviously still find them on the shelves. But, prices keep going up and up and up. Some of the smaller liquor stores in the States, they have price tags of, $300 on a bottle or something like this. Insane. For how much Weller moves to the secondary market, I'm really surprised it isn't the number 1 selection, but let's get to that right now. The number 1 whiskey on their list is, of course, the Old Rip Van Winkle 12-year-old Lot B. This one, obviously, the 10-year-old. I think you can probably group those into almost the same category. They move quite a bit. Not surprised that they had the Lot B as number 1, just because, in my opinion, that is probably the least enjoyable of the Van Winkles, if you include the Pappies and this one that I've tried before. I would prefer the 10 to the 12. But like I said in some previous reviews, it's all very batch dependent, just like the BTAC is. You know, the Wellers, the Van Winkles, they're batch dependent as well. So you might have a really good batch 12 one year, and then maybe an average one another year. In my experience, for what I've tried for the Lot B, it has not been as good as the other Van Winkles, especially the 10. So that's no surprise that that one would be the most flipped. I've traded a couple of Lot Bs myself for some other stuff, just because I think the quality isn't reflected in the secondary price. They got the secondary price at $525 USD. I think they're about $100 heavy on that, from my experience. Of course, again, you go to a liquor store, they might have a price tag of, you know, $700 on the bottle like that. But from what I've seen, stuff moving, you know, daily, it's around $425, $450 for a Lot B. MSRP, they got it at $80. What a great deal for $80, of course. Prices that on the RIP 10, I think you're looking at are about the same, about $425 USD for that bottle as well. So there you have it. There are the top 12 most flipped whiskeys according to Whisky Advocate magazine. I think maybe their snapshot of when they were researching this was maybe a little narrow. I think maybe if they did it over the span of, you know, a few more months, you might get some different results in here. Definitely this Baker's was something that was kind of hot and then cold. You know, obviously all of these very staples that you're going to see year after year come out on the secondary market because they're released every year. But I'm going to go through and mention some bottles that I didn't see on their list that I believe might take the place of some of these. So as far as BTAC is concerned, they did have the William LaRue Weller on the list. Didn't have anything else. Definitely George C. Stagg, one that definitely is constantly traded on there. You look at the release numbers for the George C. Stagg, definitely a big spike, I think, in 2017. Their numbers have been pretty high. I think they're over 25,000 bottles released per year, which I think is the most of the BTAC. So definitely those bottles get moved quite a bit. I'd definitely put this one on the list. Really surprised there was no Scotch whiskey on the list, especially how much Macallan gets moved in the secondary markets. You look at the 18-year-old, something that's constantly traded and sold, especially the stuff that is a 1997 distillate or younger. Those, you know, you're looking at, you know, $400 and up. Each year you go back, you know, add another $25, another $50 on. You know, some of those 1993s, you know, are, you know, $600 to $700 on the secondary now. Crazy money. Of course, the old discontinued cask strength, you know, those are going for $700, $600 now. Very, very expensive. Definitely more money than they're worth, but they are exceptional, great drinkers. Really surprised that no Macallan found its way on that list. Also surprised no Ardbeg found its way on the list. Definitely a very popular collectible whiskey. Anything committee release, Dark Cove or earlier commands a high value on the secondary market. This roller coaster, you're looking at prices anywhere between $400 to $600 US. I would definitely have some Bookers on the list. These special releases get traded all the time. They command a huge amount of money on the secondary market. Even some of those older regular batches that are harder to find, the 2015s and earliers, some of the brown wax stuff, definitely command a high amount of money on the secondary market. You know, you're looking at the Booker's Rye. You know, when I got this, it was around, they were trading for around $700 a bottle. Now you're up over $1,200 a bottle for a Booker's Rye. The 30th anniversary edition, you know, around $400 or so. And you go back even like the 25th anniversary edition, you're looking, I mean, almost double that. So definitely would have to have Booker's on the list. And of course, you have to have Pappy Van Winkle on the list. It's got to be number one. These things move in lots of quantities and they go for huge amounts of money. You're looking at the 15-year-old around $900 to $1,000. The 20-year-old, you're looking at about $1,500 to $1,700, and the 23-year-old about $2,100 to $2,400 depending. You go back to when Stitzer Weller was doing the distillate, you're paying even more money for those. You know, add an extra 50% on top of that probably for a lot of those releases. Just crazy, crazy amounts of money that these bottles go for, and they go all the time. People jump at them. Everyone wants to try Pappy Van Winkle. I reviewed the lineup before. You can check it out. I think they're all very, very good, but obviously not worth 10 times their retail price. But without a doubt, Pappy Van Winkle has to be on the list. I would say it's number one, just because the majority of these bottles are traded, collected, and not necessarily opened and drank. So in my opinion, there's a couple different people who use secondary markets. One, obviously, is just the person who's going to flip bottles. They're not interested in opening them. They might not even be interested in whiskey. They just see dollars and cents. It's just a pure marketplace for them, and they can buy low and sell high. Second is the investor, someone who's just looking to make money on bottles. Maybe they're paying full secondary now, but in 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, their investment, would double, triple, quadruple in money sometimes. Like I mentioned before with that Broker's Rye, secondary market prices used to be $500, $600. Now you're looking more than double that just a year and a half later. Then there's a third type of person, the whiskey enthusiast like myself, who uses a secondary market to maybe source some bottles that you would never ever see before, just to get the experience, just to see what the hype is about, the curiosity of opening a bottle that is very limited, that not too many people get to try, sharing it, enjoying it with people who will appreciate it as much as you will. That's where I see the majority of people using the secondary market. But let me know what you think. Secondary market, are you straight against it? Have you dabbled in it before, or do you constantly use it to check prices to see where the market's at on specific bottles? Have you sold anything, bought anything, got into a lotto? Let me know in the comments down below if you wish. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And until next time, guys, have a good one. Cheers.